In the heart of Africa, a land once celebrated for its rich history, cultural diversity, and resilience now stands in the shadows of silence. Sudan. What unfolds here is not just a war, it is a tragedy buried under censorship, political manipulation, and the world's selective blindness. Today we uncover the untold, the Sudan War they don't want you to see. To understand the tragedy of the Sudan War, one must look beyond the explosions and broken cities into the roots of division that were planted long before the first bullet was fired. Sudan's pain is centuries deep, woven through history by conquest, colonization, and the constant manipulation of its people for power. It is the story of a nation born in fragments where unity was never allowed to take root. When the British and Egyptians jointly colonized Sudan in the late 19th century, they divided the land not by the harmony of its people, but by administrative convenience. The North, predominantly Arab and Muslim, was favored in education and politics, while the South, home to African ethnic groups and diverse religions, was deliberately isolated. These colonial policies created two worlds within one country, a divide that would erupt into violence after independence. The borders may have been drawn on paper, but the scars they left were written on hearts and lives. After Sudan gained independence in 1956, hopes for unity quickly turned into disappointment. Power remained concentrated in Khartoum, leaving vast regions, Darfur, Blue Nile, South Kordofan, marginalized and forgotten. Promises of equality and development turned into empty words. Yet the periphery saw their resources extracted, but their people abandoned. Roads were never built, schools were never opened, and hospitals were never staffed. The government's neglect became as destructive as any warplane. Ethnic divisions, once manageable, were inflamed by propaganda and mistrust. Political elites learned to exploit identity as a weapon, to pit tribe against tribe, religion against religion. Each generation was taught to fear the other, and conflict became a way of life. What began as a struggle for justice and representation slowly turned into a cycle of revenge and survival. The tragedy of Sudan is that its people have more in common than those who divide them. The same suffering, the same dreams, and the same desire for peace. Yet they have been forced to see one another as enemies. The discovery of oil and gold only deepened the wound. Wealth, instead of bringing progress, became a curse. Competing militias rose to control resources backed by foreign powers and corporate interests. Local grievances were hijacked by global ambitions. The same soil that could have fed millions became soaked with their blood. In every corner of Sudan, from the deserts of Darfur to the banks of the Nile, communities were left to fight for survival in a system designed to keep them divided. The Sudan War, at its core, is not a spontaneous eruption of chaos. It is the result of decades of manipulation, exploitation, and silence. It is a war against unity, against justice, and against memory. A nation torn from within does not collapse overnight. It is eroded by lies, one generation at a time. The world sees only the flames, but the fire was lit long ago. Every war has its visible actors, soldiers, generals, and politicians, but behind them, hidden in the shadows, stand those who truly shape the conflict. The Sudan War is no exception. It is a web of interests where the suffering of millions becomes the profit of a few. When one looks beyond the smoke and rubble, the question that echoes across every ruined city and refugee camp is simple yet haunting. Who benefits from the chaos? Sudan's geography makes it one of the most strategically important countries in Africa. Its soil is rich with gold, oil, uranium, and fertile land. Many are orphaned, separated from their parents in the chaos, or forced to watch as war takes away their loved ones. Schools are turned into shelters, then into ruins. Education, the very foundation of a nation's future, has been stolen from an entire generation. These children grow up not with books and pens, but with hunger, fear, and trauma. Their laughter, once the heartbeat of Sudanese towns, is now replaced by silence. For women, the war is a nightmare within a nightmare. Many have become the targets of unspeakable violence, used as tools of terror to break communities and crush hope. In refugee camps, they carry the weight of both grief and survival, protecting children with what little they have. Yet their resilience shines through even in despair. They share food, build makeshift schools, and whisper prayers for peace. Their courage, often unseen, is the quiet rebellion against a world that has abandoned them. The elderly, too, suffer in silence. They are left behind in destroyed villages, unable to flee, watching everything they built over a lifetime reduced to ashes. In their eyes lies the reflection of a nation's betrayal, a country that once promised unity but delivered endless division. They have lived through wars before, but this one feels different, colder, more chaotic, and utterly indifferent to human life. Beyond the immediate horrors lies another form of death, forgetting. When the world moves on, when cameras turn away, the victims fade into oblivion. No monuments are built for them. No news anchors speak their names, yet their loss shapes the very soul of Sudan. Each unmarked grave, each missing child, each broken mother is a chapter in a story that demands to be remembered. The Sudan War they don't want you to see is not just fought on the battlefield. It is fought in the silence that follows. Every day that the world looks away, more lives vanish without witness. The true cost of this war cannot be measured in numbers because its toll lies in the countless hearts that still beat with pain, waiting for justice, waiting to be seen. In an age where information travels at the speed of light, silence is no accident. It is engineered. The Sudan War stands as one of the most devastating conflicts of our time, yet it remains largely invisible. It is not that there is nothing to report, but that there are powerful reasons not to report it. The silence surrounding Sudan is as deliberate as the violence itself. The truth is being buried, not in the sand of its deserts, but beneath layers of political control, corporate interests, and global indifference. When the war began to escalate, Sudan's media was among the first victims. Journalists were targeted, intimidated, or forced to flee. Newsrooms were raided, printing presses destroyed, and radio frequencies jammed. The internet, the last link between the people and the world, was cut off in many regions. It was a blackout, not of power, but of truth. Those who dared to film atrocities or speak out were labeled as traitors or spies. The message was clear: silence is safer than truth. The global media, meanwhile, turned its gaze elsewhere. For every minute spent covering Sudan, hours are spent on stories that attract more clicks, views, and advertising dollars. Conflicts in Africa often receive attention only when foreign interests are directly threatened or when a narrative of Western heroism can be framed. But Sudan's war offers no such simplicity, no clear villains or saviors, only human suffering. So it is ignored. What is unseen becomes unreal, and what is unreal becomes unimportant. Behind this silence lies a deeper form of manipulation, the control of narrative. When reports do emerge, they are often filtered through political agendas. Some governments downplay the violence to maintain trade relations or protect allies. Others exaggerate certain events to justify intervention. The truth becomes distorted, edited, and reshaped until it no longer belongs to the people who live it. This is how wars are not only fought but managed, through information as much as through guns. Social media, once a weapon of resistance, has also become a battleground of misinformation. Fake accounts spread propaganda, confusing fact with fiction. Real footage from Sudanese civilians is often dismissed as unverified, while polished statements from officials are accepted without question. Algorithms reward entertainment, not truth. And so the suffering of millions is buried under viral dances and celebrity scandals. Yet, despite the silence, the truth finds cracks to escape through. Brave Sudanese activists, citizen journalists, and diaspora communities continue to share what they can, often at great personal risk. They use encrypted apps, underground networks, and whispers to keep the story alive. Their courage defies a world that seems determined to forget. They remind us that silence is not neutrality, it is complicity. The media silence around Sudan is not just the absence of reporting. It is the presence of suppression. It allows the powerful to act without accountability and the innocent to die without witnesses. But every buried truth has a way of resurfacing. One day, when the sands shift and the archives open, the world will see what it chose to ignore, and history will not be kind to those who looked away. Amid the ruins of war, where buildings crumble and nations fracture, something extraordinary survives: hope. In Sudan, hope is not a luxury. It is an act of defiance. It lives in the whispers of mothers who still tell their children stories at night, in the courage of doctors who treat the wounded without medicine, and in the songs of displaced communities who refuse to forget who they are. The Sudan War may have taken lives, homes, and peace, but it has not conquered the human spirit. Hope in Sudan is not loud, does not roar or command attention. It moves quietly through the chaos, in the strength of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. In war-torn neighborhoods, volunteers risk their lives to bring food and water to trapped families. Teachers, though unpaid and threatened, gather children under trees to teach them the alphabet. Women form hidden networks to support each other, sharing whatever little they have. These are not just acts of survival, they are acts of rebellion, a refusal to let despair define their destiny. Sudanese youth in particular have become the heartbeat of resistance. This is a generation raised amid crisis, yet it dreams of peace. With nothing but mobile phones and courage, young activists record atrocities, share eyewitness accounts, and connect with the outside world. They fight not with weapons, but with truth. Their videos and messages cross borders, breaking through censorship and reminding the world that Sudan still breathes. Many of them have lost friends and family, but they continue, because they understand that silence is surrender and surrender is death. In refugee camps scattered across neighboring countries, hope takes on new shapes. Families build makeshift classrooms from tarps and sticks. Artists paint murals of peace on tent walls. Musicians play traditional Sudanese songs, turning grief into melody. These acts might seem small, but they are the seeds of a nation's rebirth. They prove that identity cannot be bombed out of existence. Even in displacement, Sudanese people carry their culture, their language, and their unbroken will to live. Amid all this, the global Sudanese diaspora plays a vital role. From London to Cairo, from Toronto to Nairobi, Sudanese communities organize protests, humanitarian drives, and online campaigns. They amplify the voices of those trapped within. They lobby governments, raise funds, and keep the memory of home alive.